Brenda Talent, the CEO of the Show Me Institute. So nice to have you in the house this morning.
So good to be here with you, Doug.
Now, we were talking just a little while ago. You and I are both West County residents in a roundabout way. You're a little further west than I am. And there's an awful lot of talk right now about putting in some kind of an ice facility in Chesterfield, which in and of itself is not a bad idea. I mean, if there's a need for ice time and that sort of thing. But who's going to pay for it and how it's going to get paid for, that's a totally different story in your eyes.
It's a completely different story. And I actually live in something called a Transportation Development District in Chesterfield. You may have heard about these districts. The auditor just issued a report a few weeks ago talking about how abusive these districts have become. And Chesterfield has one. And in fact, what's happening right now as we speak is there's a meeting of the Chesterfield Transportation Development District, which consists of 4 people. The mayor of Chesterfield, the city administrator from Chesterfield, the county executive, Steve Stanger, and a representative from the county. So 4 people run this TDD, and what they're talking about is giving $7 million of taxpayer money to fund an ice rink in Chesterfield that will be privately owned by the Chesterfield Hockey Association. And how do they get this money? Well, they collect a 3/8 cent sales tax in that whole strip center there in Chesterfield Valley. Now, as you said, Doug, if Chesterfield Hockey Association wants an ice rink, that's a great thing. But really, should taxpayers pay for it? And I've got some questions for you. So let's count the ways. First of all, the Chesterfield Hockey Association had a market study done, and guess what this study found? There's no demand for ice. So basically, what we're talking about here is this is a want, not a need. All right. Not only that, it gets better than that. I don't know if you recall reading in the paper last week that St. Louis County is talking about issuing bonds of about $45 million for an ice rink in Maryland Heights, which is about 10 miles away from Chesterfield. So if you shop in Chesterfield Valley, and if you're a resident of St. Louis County, and if these proposals go through, you're not going to be paying for one, you're going to be paying for 2 ice rinks.
Playing devil's advocate here, do these facilities have the opportunity to generate revenues in the forms of taxes and whatnot that would go back to the general populace at all?
The Chesterfield Hockey Association is a not-for-profit organization, so it's not going to be generating taxes. In fact, the property will be tax exempt. And in fact, because it's tax exempt, you've got the whole issue of who's paying for the services they're getting from the city, i.e. fire, ambulance service, that kind of thing. And one other issue here, I talked about paying for 2 ice rinks. Well, again, our county executives was speaking just last week with the mayor of St. Louis about looking at the region and finding ways to consolidate and save money. But yet here we are as a region, and it's just St. Louis County, so he's able to look at his region, and they're talking about, again, buying 2 ice rinks with taxpayer money.
So what are the odds of this going through, given there's only 4 people on this board? What are the odds of this happening, and what would be the timetable on this sort of thing?
Well, the odds of it happening are fairly significant because transportation development districts have significant undemocratic aspects to them. This district consists of Chesterfield Valley and about 140 homes. The 140 homes, the registered voters within those 140 homes will be asked to vote on whether this kind of funding can go forward. In other words, whether they can collect the 3/8 cents of a sales tax for the buyers at Walmart and Sam's. That's less than 1% of the registered voters in Chesterfield. So basically, you're going to have less than 1% of them voting for imposing a tax that's going to hit a majority of people shopping in that area, and it's going to benefit about 400 hockey players. So again, less than 1% of the residents in Chesterfield.
So I guess the real question is, for people who particularly don't like this idea or like the idea, how is the appropriate action to pick up the phone, write a letter? What should one do? Because this almost sounds like it's fait accompli.
Well, as I said, they're meeting today. I mean, part of this is letting your elected officials know that you don't like this kind of game playing. If, in fact, Chesterfield wants this kind of private ownership for an ice rink, wouldn't it be better to let all of Chesterfield vote about the sales tax? Wouldn't it also be better, because this is another aspect of this, part of what they're voting on is authorizing their general counsel to negotiate with the developers about the terms of the agreement. Shouldn't they know what the whole schematic's going to look like before they're asking people to vote on it? I'd like to make a couple of predictions also, if I might, okay? Because you said, what can you do about it? Well, you know, if you're shopping in the Chesterfield Valley and they approve this, you're going to be paying an additional 3/8 cents of a sales tax. But here's what I'm going to predict. What's going to happen is I suspect this will go through. The timetable isn't clear because this voting is different than any voting you've ever seen. What will happen is they mail ballots to the homeowners.
Really?
The homeowners need to go and vote and have their signature notarized. I bet you got an idea of how many people are actually going to do that, and then mail their votes in. They'll get to choose what period of time they do it in. Last time they did it, I believe they gave people about a month period to vote and get their ballots mailed back in. But what we're going to hear is that this is a no tax increase, because our politicians always love to do that. And they're going to say that because currently there is a TDD in place. It was used to fund various projects along that area. And so because they're not decreasing the tax, they're going to say that's a no tax increase. But that it is a tax increase. And the second thing they're going to say is this is going to spur economic development. And study after study has shown this has never been the case.
Last quick question before we go. How can you kill these TDDs? They're sort of like tax increment financing in a roundabout way.
Well, I suspect what we're going to see happen next year is we're going to see our legislature take action. Because as I said, the auditor did issue a report about how abusive these are. The other way you can kill these TDDs is for the residents of these areas simply to say no.
Very good. Brenda, thank you for dropping by this morning. Good to see you.
Thank you for having me here, Doug. And by the way, if you go to showmeinstitute.org, you can read testimony that Graham Renz from our organization is providing to the TDD this morning.
Brenda Talent, CEO of the Show Me Institute, joining us at 8:46 here on the Big